The huntsman fight is begun by simply having your off-tank attack midnight. During the time that the off-tank's building threat and your DPS is beginning to burn him down, your main tank's job will be to position himself so that he's ready to pick up the huntsman the moment that he spawns. The huntsman will spawn the moment that midnight hits 95%. In this case, right now. Now you can see the main tank pick up the huntsman and then pull him to the back wall of the room. Now during phase 2, your DPS is focused on midnight, and your healers are focused on keeping up nothing but the 2 tanks in the party. No one else should be taking any damage in the raid. Now the reason for drawing Huntsman to the back wall and pointing him away is so that his AoE curse hits only the main tank, and so that his frontal cleave hits only the tank. If your main tank's capable of disarming, that's also a really helpful strategy, as it's one of the best and only real ways to mitigate the damage that's done by the Huntsman. Now the Huntsman fight is definitely a gear check, and a test to see whether your raid group can do the damage, take the damage, and heal through the damage that the Karazhan events are going to dish out. But it's also a test of your longevity, and one of the mistakes often made is to burn Midnight down too quickly and leave yourselves with little to no mana for phase 3. Midnight needs to be taken down, but you also need to make sure that you leave yourself with enough mana and enough juice going into phase 3 that you can deal with the Huntsman when he finally mounts on Midnight. It's imperative also that the transitions here are picked up quickly by the tanks. The only real skill test to this whole encounter come at the transitions when the Huntsman spawns, and right now, when the Huntsman mounts Midnight, beginning phase 3. Now, if he's not picked up immediately, he'll run right to the party, most likely, and start attacking members of the raid. If he's given too much time, he'll most likely 1 or 2 shot members of your raid, and every member you lose makes it that much more difficult for you to complete the encounter. Once the main tank's picked up aggro on the Huntsman, pulled him back into the middle of the room, and built some threat, it's basically a continuation of a tank and spank fight. DPS focuses on the Huntsman, healers focus on keeping the main tank up, and now you have to deal with one new element that you just saw, the random range charge. There doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason as to who he charges. There's some speculation that he won't charge people that are the farthest away. There's some people that feel that he will only charge the people that are farthest away. It appears to us, for the most part, that it's a random charge aimed at any ranged member of the raid. It's imperative that anyone hit by one of these charges immediately is healed up on the off chance that he decides to double charge a person, which we've seen happen before. We've also seen Clothies hit for just over 8k on crits, so it is possible for someone to get one shot by the charges, but it really doesn't happen very often. But it also is a good reminder that having a decent amount of hit points is never a bad idea. You'll also notice that the melee DPSers, in this case the rogue on the right of the Huntsman, will pull back slightly every time the Huntsman makes a charge. The reason for this is that his frontal cleave seems to be on a random timer. It's not uncommon on the way back to the main tank after making the charge for the Huntsman to throw out that frontal cleave before he's actually gotten to the main tank. We've had many situations where the entire group of melee DPS will get hit by the cleave, even though they're in the position that they are typically DPSing, because that cleave comes off early. It's also a good idea for the rest of the raid to remain relatively bunched up, to avoid having a similar occurrence happen in the middle of the raid if the Huntsman charges someone at the back of the party. You'll also notice that the Huntsman always makes his way back to the main tank. The charges are random, and he'll make his way back to the person with the highest aggro, so as long as the group's mindful of making sure that the tank remains top on the threat list, the Huntsman will always charge and then move back to his primary target. So slow and steady DPS wins the day here, and if you're able to take this guy down, you've made it through the first real check as to whether or not you're ready to start your way towards the other encounters in Karazhan.